Hello, welcome to Monday Morning Matters live broadcast show brought to you by Magnicraft Consulting team, anchored by Niyi Dunmade, a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the U.S. Here, each Monday of every week, we address important, relevant, and actionable topics of interest that will help you and your church grow healthier. And now, meet your host, Niyi Dunmade.
Welcome. Good morning to everyone on YouTube, on Facebook, on social media, online. I'm greeting you all the way from the city of Abuja. This year is running to an end, but we can still make something out of this year. We can still do something in this last quarter just to make sure that, the second half, the last quarter of any game is always very crucial because that's when you can know if you're going to consolidate your win. So thank you for hooking up with us on Monday Morning Matters. We are so glad that you are part of this live broadcast show. My name is Niyi Dunmade. I'm the founder and the CEO of Magnicraft Consulting. Magnicraft Consulting is a church consulting firm that helps local churches grow healthier through empirical assessments, trainings, and strategic blueprints. I'm also a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the US, quite some other certification I have. And of course, I'm your host to the weekly Facebook live broadcast show on Monday, 7 a.m. Nigerian time. So you're welcome to this Monday Morning Matters. A big thank you to all of you who are commenting, who are reaching out to us on the social media and those liking our posts, sharing our posts, reaching out with questions. And I want to really deeply appreciate you from the depth of my heart. And I want to really thank you for getting across to us. Please make sure you get my book, my first book, Church Growth, Pathway to Growth. If you have any relationship with a church, you are leading a church, you are managing a church, you are a leader in a church, please make sure you get my book on church retention, pathway to growth. Church retention, pathway to growth. And today we're going to go straight down into what we have today, and that will be so fast because I want to do that within 18 minutes. Okay, now 4 minutes is gone, but I want to do that within next 15 minutes. Okay, so much to share, but please give me your attention. This is what we did last week. Please, if you have missed that episode, get back to the previous. I did a mistake. I streamed that on my personal Facebook page, but please make sure you go to the YouTube page. 5 ways to deal with infrequency of church attendance, and please go get up that nugget from the YouTube channel or the Facebook page. Okay, but today we are going to look at the professional reasons why, my own professional reasons why your church should not run on a low retention rate. So I'm going to look at the dangers, the disadvantage, okay, of low church retention rates. And please listen to me carefully because I'm going to go really deep into some numbers, theology of numbers, and you need to be very attentive to me. You cannot address the many issues your church is about around church growth without dealing with the issue of church retention. The reasons why churches can't retain members can be drilled down to 2 things. That's discipleship is not healthy and evangelism is not healthy. So the fallout of this decline can be attributed to the continuous less attention to these 2 areas I've mentioned. The number of people who never go to church or follow Jesus is rising on a daily basis. Okay, because most churches are running on low retention rate. What I mean by low retention rate is that for every visitor or first timer that come into your church, there are much more people who are leaving the back door. So because we have more people leaving the back door, the number of people who never go to church, because it will take much more effort to get those who are once in the church and they exited the church to come back to the church. It takes really more effort to get someone who was following Jesus and stop following Jesus, and that statistic is growing. And the thinking and that thinking also keeps changing, okay, because the demand in cultural change in our society. So some stay away from church not because they don't know any Christian, but because they do, and what they do about any Christian is such that it gives them a buffer, a barrier, a limitation to joining the church. Okay, let's move on fast. And now, what are the assumptions about retention? Retention, number one, retention of members and guests does not happen automatically. And that's the truth. You don't just say because your doors are open, the retention of guests is automatic. It is never automatic. You make that assumption, that might be just the reason why you are running at a low retention rate. So retention of guests and members does not happen automatically. I can tell you that also this retention is a process that runs continuously. Okay, somebody has been in your church for 10 years, you still have to get the person in a pipeline of assimilation process to make sure that the person is still plugged into your church. And that's how it is. So retention of members and guests does not happen automatically. It has to be intentional. It has to be deliberate. You have to do something in your part to make sure that those who come into your front door are being assimilated, are being plugged in, are being established, are being grounded in your church. Number two, the responsibility of retention rests with the church. You don't expect somebody outside of church to come and assimilate guests for you. So the responsibility of the retention of guests rests on the church, not on the assimilation pastor, not on the set man or the leader of the church, but it rests on the entire church. You see, I've seen churches where the leader wants to get 2,000 assimilated, but you see, the church does not just have the mindset and the capacity to get the 2,000. So you have to make sure that you have this shared responsibility for every groups in your church to retention. So the responsibility for retention rests with the entire church. Number three, time is so fast. Okay, the process of retaining the new people that come into your church begins before membership. So don't tell me that when you are trying to do your membership class, that's when retaining starts. Your retaining starts from online, from your billboard, from your flyers, from when they had a contact with your church. That's where the process of retaining starts from. That's where the glue, begins to stick on. It doesn't start when you start your membership 101 or your membership class that you have to induct people into your church. Okay, so the process of retaining new people begins before membership. So don't always say when you have 101 or the first class with your guests that you have started retaining them. Okay, number four, retention is an ongoing process. I said that. It's an ongoing process. It never stops. So somebody is a member of your church for 20 years. You can't say because the person is a member of your church for your 20 years, you're going to wrap up that person and say that person is your member. You have to keep on finding a way to get the person more plugged in. Internet, help me please, into your church. So retention is an ongoing process and needs to be consistent. So if your church is running at 70% retention rate, and what that means is that for every 10 that comes into your front door, 7 is retained in your church and 3 is exiting the back door. So what happens is that if you are running at a consistent rate of 70%, there is going to be tremendous progress. But if you are running consistent at 10%, and what 10% retention rate means is that for every 10 that comes in your church, 1 is retained in your church and 9 exit the back door. So you have to be consistent with the capacity development as it relates to your church size. So as your church is growing, as your retention rate is growing, you have to be consistent about that. Okay, number 5, most churches can improve their effectiveness in retaining people, and then you have to just look inwards. Okay, for you to be able to retain, you don't have to look outward. It's inside, because that's where people are going to join. So try to improve your internal systems, improve your pathways, your processes, your discipleship pathways, your assimilation process, to make sure that you are effective, you are also efficient in retaining people. Oh, time is going, but I need to go fast. So that's all I said about the assumptions of retention. Okay, Now, the thing is this. If you are running at a retention rate of 30%, and you know what 30% means? 30% means that for every 10 that comes into your front door, get my book, you got the definitions for front door, that of course, and the back door, side door, revolving door. These are part of the things that we shared in my book, Church Retention, Pathway to Growth. That's my first book. It's so hot. People are ordering for the book. Please make sure you get the book. So what it means that if your church is running at a retention rate of 30%, what it means is that for every 10 that comes into your front door, 3 is retained and then 7 is leaving the back door. Now, I'm making an assumption here, okay? Now, look at it. That's a low retention rate. 30% is a low retention rate, okay? Now, what that means is that you have a high front door. High front door means that you have a high volume of guests coming to your front door, and you have high volume of people exiting. But so that church having 30% means that it has a high front door and a high back door. What it means is that you are running at a low retention rate, but at 30%, it will take you almost 2 years to be able to double. 2 years to double because you are running at a low retention rate. So if your church size is 250 and for you to double, you need another 250. I'm making an assumption that if you are using 1,000 naira, I'm looking to use my own currency. You might use your own currency, 1,000, just for illustration purposes, for us to understand the financial implication. If you are using 1,000 naira to process your guests into your church, what it means that for you to double, right, you need at 30%, you need 840 guests to come into your front door. And what it means that 588 people are going to leave the back door. You must have spent 840,000 naira to be able to process those volumes of guests. And you must have lost 588,000 naira lost to sunk costs, okay? And what is consolidated in your church is 252,000 naira for you to double in 1 year, 1.6 years, that's 82 weeks. And you can see how that is escalated when your church is 1,000 size. For your church to double, you need 1,000 people to be added to your church, right? To make 2,000. But you see, for you to run at 30% retention rate, you need a visitor's volume to come into your front door at 3,360. So for you to be able to get that, what is leaving the back door is around 2,400 guests that are exiting the back door. Now you can see that you are losing about 2.9 million lost, okay, because you have followed them up. You know that 1,000 naira is to make calls to them, to get them gifts, to get them drinks, whatever it is that it costs you to be able to receive your guests. That might be more, that might be less, but I'm just using this for an illustration purposes. Now you see, now for that same retention rate, let's look at it for 35 weeks. Now in 35 weeks, running at 30% retention rate, you're going to get from 250 to 358. Okay, and that's not doubling in 35 weeks. But also for 1,000, you're going to get 1,432 in 35 weeks. Okay, and that's what happens when you're running at a low retention rate. Now, if you're running at a high retention rate, you have a high front door and a low back door. 70% retention rate means that for every 10 that comes into your front door, you have 3 lost to your back door and 7 retains in your church. So it's faster. You can see where it's taking you almost 2 years. The 35 weeks that was taking you about 350 something, you were able to double in with 70% retention rate. You were not able to double in 30% retention rate with 30% rate, but with 70% rate, you're able to double in 35 weeks. And you were not able to double in 30% retention rate. Now you can see that you need a lesser visitors volume at a higher retention rate and less work. Okay, as against 840 at 30%, you need just 360 guests to come to your front door at 70% retention rate. And then those people who are exiting the back door, about 108, and you see the amount of money you're going to be spending to receive because of lesser guest volume coming to your front door, 360,000 was able to double in 35 weeks. Now you can see if I'm going to maintain 70% for the number of times for me to double at 30%, I showed you earlier on, okay, to double it earlier on, you can see that for me to run at 70% consistently for those 82 weeks that was used to double a 30% retention rate, you can see that 250 church size went to over 838, and 2,000 size church moved to about 3,400 membership at 70% retention rate. And then you have this lesser amount of money to be able to process those who come through your front door. Now let's go on and on. Time will not permit me to go deep down. Get my book. You're going to get. Now you can see the dangers of running low retention rate, 10%. What 10% retention rate means is that for every 10 that comes to your front door, 1 is retained and 9 leaves the back door. Now I'm looking at the 82 weeks that I use for 30% retention rate. Now you can see that the church grew from 250 to 334 at 10%. That's in 82 weeks. You can see it took the church a longer time, though they had the same visitors volume of 840 guests coming to the front door, but you can see the amount of money they have spent just to be able to get to 300, which is very, very poor. Now, looking at and 10% means that you have a high front door, but then you have a high back door, a very high back door rate. Now, for us to be able to double for 10%, okay, you can see it took almost 4 years to be able to double. And for you to be able to double, you need 2,500 guests to come through your front door. And then you have 2,250 guests leaving the back door in almost 4 years for you to be able to double. Now, you can see the amount of money that you are spending to be able to process those who come to your front door. That's like 10 million naira for a 1,000 size church, and a quarter of 2.5 million naira to be able to process the visitors volume to be able to double with a high front door retention rate of 10% in your church. Now, look at that also for 50%. The same thing is so sure for 50% and 90%. I need to wrap up now. Okay, and then the same thing for, you can have 80%, you can have 10%. Time not permit me for to explain how it is, but I want to come to a conclusion with all this explanation that I'm making now. Okay, I'm using the case scenario of 250 size church size and also a 1,000 size church. Now, what is our deductions from all this explanation? I know you might want to go back to listen to what I've explained and get my book, but this is the deduction. The higher the retention rate, the lesser the time duration to maximize potentials, and the lesser the amount lost to sunk cost. Okay, because the higher the retention rate, the lesser the amount you're going to spend on those who are lost to the back door, which is attributed to sunk cost on assimilation guests, and the fewer the guest volume that the church needs to double in size. I read that again. The higher the retention rate, the lesser the time duration. Okay, the higher that you take less time to double. You take less time to maximize your potential. You take less time also lost to sunk costs on assimilating guests. And of course, you also take less guest volume to be able to double in size. So what are the other dangers and adverse effects of low retention rate? Number one, a growing number of people, give me 5 minutes please, a growing number of people who are familiar with the church but not convinced to join, because you have people coming to the back door, exiting to the back door on a regular basis in a high back door, and you have a growing number of people who are familiar with the church, they've tasted your church, they're not happy with your church, and they are not convinced to join. Number two, reduce the number of repeats and second-time visitors, because you have a high back door end, you don't have repeats. And what makes church grow is when you have repeats, and that's why infrequency of attendance is what's causing them, is a major reason for decline. So retention is, you are reducing the number of repeats, the second time, third time, fourth time, over time, and that's what causes decline in your church. Okay, number three, reduction in number of new referrals, because people are not happy with your church. You don't have referrals in the community. People are not going to be ambassadors or pointers and referrals for your church in the community. Okay, and the fourth one is erosion of the potential of church publicity and advert. So people see your advert, people see your flyer, people see your billboard, people see your jingles, and they are not convinced. The potency is eroded because they've come to your church. They are not happy with your church. The experience they have with your church does not match up with their expectation, and so that advert potency has been eroded, so it's not effective anymore. And lastly, poor perception of and a brand image of your church, because you have more people. I hope you know that the people who are in your community is finite. It's not endless. It's not like it's finite. There's a number of people in your community, and it's growing, it's reducing, and you need to know that perception is either growing or is reducing based on whether it is high retention rate or it is low retention rate. Now, the process is this. People are moving from the outside in the community to become guests, coming to your church, become believers and disciples in your church. And that's what I want you to understand. You need to understand how to move people from the outside of your church and become guests to your church. Then from guests, you become believers. What is the process? From turning guests to become members and believers. And then you need to find ways to get those believers to become disciples. And those disciples have to go to where? To the community, as to bring people outside again to become guests in your church. Thank you. I've been able to gulp up some chunk out some content out for you. Please stay with me. I'm going to wrap it up shortly. I've told you all those adverse effects of low retention rate on your local church. Thank you for hooking up. If you have any related questions, you have any inquiries, you will need my book, please make sure you hit up my number on the screen. Hit up my number on the screen, and then please make sure you hit my number on the screen, and then let us see how we can get you to get your answers for you. Please, you have any related questions, this video has been useful to you, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share to a loved one, a pastor, a church leader. It is to you. Let us know how useful it is to you. Please, if you have any question, I love to hear from you. I love to learn from you. Drop us a comment how helpful this is to you. We do church consultations. We do trainings. We also do